Vive le Christ roi!
Recap of Part 1, the Conciliarization of the SSPX.
SSPX, what have you done? You were the last, now you have none. Fellay betrayed with paper and pen, sold us to Rome, never again.
In Part 1, we expose the undeniable betrayal of the SSPX leadership in 2012, a betrayal that was not accidental, but deliberate, calculated, and long in the making. We established that Archbishop Lefebvre founded the SSPX to resist modernist Rome, to hold fast to eternal Catholic Rome, while rejecting the Rome of Vatican II. His position was clear. We adhere with all our heart and all our soul to Catholic Rome, guardian of the Catholic faith, but we refuse and have always refused to follow the Rome of neo-modernist and neo-Protestant tendencies. Lefebvre categorically rejected Vatican II, condemned the new Mass as a poison rite, and warned that any agreement with modernist Rome would be Operation Suicide for the SSPX. Yet after his death, his successors did exactly what he warned against. The betrayal did not begin in 2012, it was set in motion years before through GREC, a secretive think tank founded in 1997 to reconcile the SSPX with modernist Rome. Bishop Fellay and SSPX leadership were fully aware of this operation, engaging in secret discussions for over a decade. In April of 2012, the betrayal was made official when Bishop Fellay submitted the Doctrinal Declaration, a document that accepted Vatican II in light of tradition, recognized the legitimacy of the new Mass, submitted the SSPX to the 1983 Code of Canon Law, accepted Ratzinger's 1989 Oath of Fidelity, requiring submission to post-Vatican II theology. This was not a misunderstanding. It was an open capitulation to modernist Rome, directly contradicting everything Archbishop Lefebvre fought for. When three SSPX bishops, Bishop Tissier, Bishop de Galaretta, and Bishop Williamson, warned Fellay against this deal, he ignored them, taken from the letter of the three SSPX bishops in 2012. You want to lead the society to a point where it will no longer be able to turn back to a profound division of no return. After 2012, the SSPX softened its stance on Vatican II, accepted modernist Rome's control over SSPX marriages and confessions, expelled clergy who resisted the sellout, became controlled opposition, appearing traditional while structurally submitting to Rome through a practical agreement. This was the great deception of 2012, a betrayal of Archbishop Lefebvre's mission and a fulfillment of his direst warnings. Now in Part 2, we move to the next phase, the doctrinal surrender of the SSPX. We will expose the 2012 Doctrinal Declaration in detail, the undeniable smoking gun proving the SSPX leadership submitted to modernist Rome. We will analyze the shift in rhetoric, actions, and policies that followed, showing how the SSPX leadership deceived its own faithful. We will prove that what happened in 2012 was not a moment of weakness, but a deliberate, strategic compromise that aligned the SSPX with the Conciliar Church. Stay tuned, because once you see the evidence, there is no going back. The Doctrinal Declaration, the smoking gun of betrayal. The betrayal of 2012 was not hidden in vague gestures or unofficial statements. It was written in black and white, signed and submitted to Rome by Bishop Bernard Fellay himself. This smoking gun is known as the Doctrinal Declaration of April 15th, 2012. This document is the clearest proof that the SSPX leadership officially abandoned the principles of Archbishop Lefebvre. You might ask, what was the Doctrinal Declaration? The Doctrinal Declaration was the official submission of the SSPX's theological position to modernist Rome. This was not a negotiation draft, nor was it a mere internal letter. This was a formal doctrinal submission, a statement of belief intended to prove that the SSPX was ready for reintegration into the Vatican II Church. Here are key verbatim compromises from the Doctrinal Declaration. Number 1, acceptance of Vatican II as part of tradition. From the Doctrinal Declaration, April 15th, 2012, we declare that we accept the doctrine contained in the Second Vatican Council, ... interpreted in the light of tradition. Why is this a betrayal? Archbishop Lefebvre repeatedly condemned Vatican II as irreconcilable with tradition. SSPX leadership now accepts the Hermeneutic of Continuity, Pope Benedict XVI's false claim that Vatican II aligns with tradition. By accepting Vatican II, the SSPX has surrendered to the very errors they once fought. Number 2, recognition of the legitimacy of the new Mass and new sacraments. In the Doctrinal Declaration of April 15, 2012, it states, "We declare that we recognize the validity of the Novus Ordo Missae and the sacraments legitimately promulgated by Pope Paul VI and John Paul II." Why is this a betrayal? Archbishop Lefebvre called the new Mass a poisoned rite and refused to recognize its legitimacy. Bishop Fellay's declaration contradicts decades of SSPX teaching on the dangers of the new Mass. This submission implicitly acknowledges Vatican II's liturgical revolution as valid. Number 3, submission to the 1983 Code of Canon Law. The Doctrinal Declaration of April 15, 2012 states, "We declare that we recognize the legitimacy of the 1983 Code of Canon Law." Why is this a betrayal? The 1983 Code was written to enforce Vatican II's new theology and contains modernist principles on religious liberty, ecumenism, and collegiality. Lefebvre never accepted the 1983 Code, stating that it was dangerous for the faith. By submitting to this code, the SSPX is bound to the legal framework of the Conciliar Church. Number 4, adherence to the 1989 Profession of Faith, Ratzinger's Oath of Submission. In the Doctrinal Declaration of April 15, 2012, it states, "We declare that we accept the 1989 Profession of Faith in the Oath of Fidelity." Why is this a betrayal? The 1989 Profession of Faith was created by Cardinal Ratzinger to require Catholics to accept the post-Vatican II magisterium without question. Lefebvre condemned this oath as a way of forcing Catholics to submit to modernism. By accepting it, SSPX leaders pledged their allegiance to the Conciliar Church. How this contradicts Archbishop Lefebvre. This document flies in the face of everything Archbishop Lefebvre stood for. In 1974, Lefebvre made it clear, "We adhere with all our heart and all our soul to Catholic Rome, guardian of the Catholic faith, but we refuse and have always refused to follow the Rome of neo-modernist and neo-Protestant tendencies." In 1988, after rejecting a Vatican deal, Lefebvre warned, "Today, this day is Operation Survival. If I had made this deal with Rome, by continuing with the agreements we had signed, and by putting them into practice, I would have performed Operation Suicide." In 1989, he went further. "Do not have a point of contact with the one who is in charge of destroying tradition. They don't know what to do to divide us and are surprised at so much resistance. They seem not to understand that it is a problem of faith from the beginning." Yet in 2012, Bishop Fellay ignored all of this and submitted a document that was completely opposed to these principles. The SSPX's attempt to cover it up. Once the Doctrinal Declaration became public, the SSPX leadership scrambled to minimize the damage. Bishop Fellay never formally retracted it. He merely said it was withdrawn, not that it was an error. The SSPX released contradictory explanations, claiming it was a misunderstanding. Instead of condemning Vatican II, SSPX leadership began pushing for recognition from modernist Rome. This was not a mistake. This was a premeditated act of betrayal. Bishop Fellay had prepared for years to change the direction of the SSPX, and this document proves it.
Having to be, let's say, recognized and recognize the others and so on, it's a whole new situation. It's I may say, it's like something like a new world.
We don't just have documents. We have Bishop Fellay's own words, spoken in 2012, Unlike previous SSPX betrayals, which were veiled in ambiguous statements, this betrayal is undeniable because Bishop Fellay condemns himself with his own verbatim words.
The problem of what really means hermeneutic of continuity or of a reform, there you need to go deeper in.
Fellay's first contradiction. Vatican II is not to blame.
We see that many things which we would have condemned as being from the Council are in fact not from the Council, but the common understanding of it.
He continues.
The Council is presenting a religious liberty which in fact is a very, very limited one, very limited.
Bishop Fellay knows that Vatican II's religious liberty is a heresy, but here he justifies it. Fellay directly contradicts Archbishop Lefebvre.
When it goes about us, we begin to be like, I don't know, something like a sign of contradiction.
Archbishop Lefebvre in 1976 said, "This council represents a new church, which is not the Catholic Church." Lefebvre categorically rejected Vatican II as a rupture with Catholic tradition. Fellay claims the problem isn't the council itself, but just how people understood it. Instead of admitting that Vatican II itself was heretical, he pretends that the problem was merely a misunderstanding of the council. This is exactly how Conciliar Rome justifies its errors. They claim that Vatican II was never meant to break with tradition. They insist the problem was in interpretation, not in the council's actual teachings. Fellay is using the Conciliar Church's own excuses to shift the SSPX toward accepting Vatican II.
Pope says that he even said it recently, that the council must be put within this great tradition of the Church, must be understood within this and in coherence with it. You see, these are statements we fully agree with. Totally, absolutely.
For decades, SSPX priests and faithful fought Vatican II as a poisoned well. Now, Fellay is telling them that Vatican II wasn't the real issue. This is a calculated shift in SSPX's doctrine, preparing them for eventual acceptance of the council. Fellay's second contradiction, thanking modernist Rome.
If this recognition happens, it's to thanks to him, definitely, and to him alone.
Why is this statement proof of treason? Bishop Fellay thanks Benedict XVI for recognizing the SSPX. Recognizing. Archbishop Lefebvre in 1988 said, "If one day they shall grant us what we ask, it will be with the intention of making us accept what we refuse. This is why I do not align myself with those who work for this reconciliation." Lefebvre always rejected recognition from modernist Rome because he knew it was a trap. Fellay treats this recognition as a victory when in fact it means submission.
Just life tells us that we better bow down. If there's a time of persecution, for example, nobody is obliged to provoke the opponent or the persecutor.
Instead of resisting modernist Rome, he was negotiating his way into it. This was not recognition of the SSPX. This was the SSPX recognizing Conciliar Rome. Fellay presents modernist Rome as a benevolent authority, not an enemy. Archbishop Lefebvre on December 4th, 1988 said, "Rome has lost the faith. Rome is in apostasy. This is not an exaggeration. It is the truth. Rome is in apostasy." Lefebvre rightly declared that the modernist Rome had lost the faith. Fellay praises modernist Rome, as if Pope Benedict were helping tradition. Bishop Fellay's own words condemn him. He actively worked to lead the SSPX into submission. Bishop Fellay did not fight modernism, he helped modernist Rome co-opt the SSPX.
Stood firm, he drew the line, resisting the of